Now, the issue of reparations to compensate Black Americans for slavery and other discriminatory policies has gained momentum in recent years. President Biden has supported a study on the issue. One U.S. city is turning that momentum into reality, giving some Black residents payments. It is seen as a test run for other cities and communities across the country. Dan Williams has more.
The city of Evanston lies some 20 kilometers along Lake Michigan from downtown Chicago. It is ranked as one of the best places to live in the U.S. state of Illinois, but it hasn't always been that way for all of the residents.
So this is the west end of the 5th Ward. It is where redlining took place. It is where amenities and city services and livability was stripped away from Black families.
Robin Rue Simmons is a former ward alderman of the area. In 2019, under her leadership, Evanston became the first city in the United States to pass a reparations law for Black residents. It's aimed to address decades of segregation and discrimination. Payments of $25,000 have now been paid out to the first 16 recipients.
Recipients have said that they feel heard and seen for the first time in their communities. More hope for the life circumstances of their families and the Black community overall. Everyone, I think, is acknowledging that our initial benefits of $25,000 are an important first step, a tangible first step, one that gives us great hope.
Lou Weathers was among the first to receive a payment.
When I got my notice today and won, I was elated.
He used some of the cash to reduce his son's mortgage. The initial focus of the program is on providing residents with housing assistance and economic development. But he says the payment doesn't make amends for the wrongs of the past.
I came up through the time that they had redlining. That doesn't mean that I think $25,000 is an appropriate amount for reparation, because economically we have been deprived years and years of economic gains.
The payments have been made from an initial $10 million fund, financed by taxes on legalized cannabis sales and real estate transfers. Evanston became the first U.S. city to address historical discrimination harms by turning promises into hard reparations cash. But there are some critics of the program, with some claiming the precedent it sets undermines the wider reparations movement. Groups campaigning for reparations at a national level continue. But Rue Simmons believes action can happen at both levels.
Those that have the opinion that a local initiative could interfere with a federal policy, I'm in complete disagreement with. I absolutely agree with them that a federal policy is necessary, that it's overdue. I fight for that, parallel to fighting for local reparations.
Weathers agrees with that assessment.
I think everybody should get reparations. It means to me that it opens the door for African Americans to open their eyes to what's going on economically, because economically is where you can able to do things and raise your family in a decent way.
There are signs of progress, at least at a local level. Today, across the country, there are over 100 localities that are in the process of implementing reparations of some kind. Dan Williams, CGTN, Evanston, Illinois.
For more on where reparations legislation stands across the U.S., we're joined by Michael Nabors. He's the president of the NAACP in the Evanston Branch. He's also the senior pastor of the Second Baptist Church in Evanston, Illinois. Pastor, good to have you on the show, and welcome. You know,
thank you, Phil. Good to be here.
America has gone through certainly a painful history when it comes to this particular topic. And I'm going to start off by saying there's no amount of money that's going to offset the suffering and discriminatory practices that took place in this country. That said, some are using, of course, the money to try to offset some of that. I suppose the best way to describe it is maybe can this be a beginning of a healing process?
Phil, I think that's a great question. And yes, I think that it is the beginning of a healing process, and it doesn't have to do altogether with money. It has to do with a local community taking ownership for some of the discrimination that occurred as a result of racism down through the years. And there's a reckoning that the community has accepted. And that first step is really saying to the Black community, we apologize for what has happened. And then after the apology, looking at the resources to see what can be done to begin to correct and right and repair the damages.
And if you heard from our story from Dan, some of the folks he interviewed, felt that it was appropriate that local communities can begin that process. And I would let our international viewers know that, America is certainly a very large place with thousands of cities spread from east to west. And there were different types and different levels of discrimination depending on which city you were in. Is it right that individual cities can address the reparations how they see fit, or does it have to be a national blanket?
No, Phil, again, another good question. Absolutely. I think that individual initiatives are the way to go, but that's not at the expense of a national initiative. The Congressional Black Caucus has completely supported the Evanston reparations movement as the first successful local reparations movement. And as a result of that, we're working hand in hand with a national initiative that has been around for over 30 years. When the late Congressman John Conyers from Detroit first introduced H.R. 40, that was the first effort to try to begin a national program. It got stuck. But at the local level, we're able to move much more rapidly. There's less bureaucracy, there's less red tape, and those folks who are making decisions are also your neighbors, the people that you go to church with, the people that you see at the local park.
On a national scale, Congress, I have not seen a lot of articles outside of the Black Caucus. What support is there from either Democrats or Republicans when it comes to this particular topic?
Well, Sheila Jackson Lee is the one who has been heading the movement for H.R. 40 and reparations at a national level since January of last year. So they were moving very, very well before the last election took place. As you know, this was in the House, and at that time, the House had the majority Democratic rule. So Democrats were certainly in favor of H.R. 40, and I believe that at last count, they probably had about 220 Democrats who were supportive of H.R. 40. I think they need to get to 260, so they were still off a ways.
I know one of the subset of groups that are affected by this is the youth, especially those looking to go into whether it's community college or university or any other trade school. And for a lot of folks, they say that there needs to be more opportunities for them to learn and grow and to have the same opportunities as everybody else may have had. That said, would it be useful if some of these funds went to, say, scholarships on an education level for those that need it most in the communities that may be suffering the most? I'm not talking about New York City. I'm talking about places in the South, places in the West that may have been overlooked.
Yeah, Phil, absolutely. I think that one of the next steps for Evanston reparations is going to be education. So as you know, there were 4 key issues or areas that Evanston reparations is supposed to address. And the first one was housing, because it was easiest to be able to look up and find the discrimination that occurred because of racism due to housing. But the 3 other issues revolve around education. Another one revolves around economic development. And the third one revolves around healthcare. So yes, we do believe that reparations and money being raised is going to have to go toward increasing opportunities for our children to go to college, vocational school, wherever they want to go.
Sometimes if you watch mainstream media, they often put whites against blacks, and of course I don't like that personally, because there are a number of minorities I speak with that are extremely empathetic to the cause of African Americans in this country, and many are apologetic. Many do feel some guilt. While they were not around during a lot of these the criminal violence acts and discriminatory practices, they certainly feel partially responsible, and they are sorry. What would you tell those that are watching this that perhaps either want to help or apologize or contribute in some way to this cause?
Well, Phil, I would ask them to look at the example of Evanston, because our reparations movement has succeeded because of our white friends, our allies, we call them, in this movement for reparations. I want you to know that last year, the Interfaith Group, which is predominantly white in Evanston, decided they wanted to support reparations in Evanston. In less than 6 months, the Interfaith Group of 18 white congregations came together and raised $1 million for reparations in Evanston. So that is an example of collaboration and networking between Black and white and other. We have Latin folks in the community, we have Asian Americans, and they are all supportive of our effort, just as we are supportive of many of their efforts as well.
Pastor Michael Nabors, really appreciate you helping us better understand this very important topic. Hope to have you on again soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Phil. Thanks.